Watch.
I'm sure they made sure it's okay.
Okay, got it.
I'm sure they
What are you going to
they
do? Plug the screen? You can.
no
It
for
makes more women, not for men
the
to watch.
sound. The sound. They turn off the sound. Don't worry.
No,
If
it's
you
for
want.
women to watch, not for men.
Thanks very good. Send me a picture. Say you're very good and send me a picture of the
Here.
woman in front of send me out on his face.
But the parts I was watching, there was no women singing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, let's
yeah.
start.
Has to do with the more we learn. Oh, come on.
You learn about Bakama. It's a little bit in Babakama, a little bit Kiddushin. Classic Sicha, Rashi Sicha. Here, it's like fun.
Oh, water. Oh, yes.
Last week there was a beautiful gem video. Not this Motzei Shabbos, the previous Motzei Shabbos. We didn't manage to get it on the screen here.
That's what rubbish we did.
Yeah, which one?
I'll tell you what's his name.
Lipsker?
It's yeah.
Oh, it wasn't from Bell Harbor?
With the jail. How did
With the jail. Yeah, oh, you had it? And it was remarkable. They found that judge that opened all the doors for him originally is still alive, and they were able to interview him.
Now?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah, Zokin. And they found the video with this judge. He was the Chief Justice of the Eastern District. So he came to the Rebbe and
Yes, there's a video how he by the
with
Rebbe.
the Rebbe, and then they interview him. Yeah,
Oh.
a very liberal judge, very liberal judge, and he was so enthralled by the Rebbe.
It's the that somebody care about prison. Nobody till now nobody care about
Not here, but Bachlav, that whole, weißt du, als Heint Jeden geworden, also, man legt Film, mit einem Schachris, you buy bagels and you're Republican. Also geworden, also Jeden. But the MS is that on issues on these social issues, the Rebbe was not stam liberal, but progressive liberal ad blidai.
he wants people to be back.
The Rebbe said if you're not treating prisoners, soll not rauskommen, soll sein Ärger. In the Sikh, it's all in the Sikh. It's unbelievable.
There's the words from the Rebbe.
The Rebbe said was very, yeah. Anyway, here's a liberal Yiddish judge who was very taken by the Rebbe's approach towards criminality. That you have to rehabilitate them, you have to treat them like mention, and
Find the good in them.
and you have to find the good in them, and you have to treat them nicely. He was instrumental in helping Chabad start off the Aleph Institute.
Wow.
And he came to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe gave him brachas, and the Rebbe encouraged him. Huh?
It was in Pashas Ve'ela
No, I don't know why. They should have done a Ve'ela Mishpatim. They did it last week. I don't know what the connection was. Can sein. But I already told a part of the story the previous week because I was when I was in Surfside, I met Rabbi Lipsker and he told me the whole Maisa with another few protim that were a little off the record, which I told over. I told
We give you
the
half an hour to speak to. That's already a big deal.
Yeah, he spoke to me for an hour.
Wow.
That's already a big deal.
Yeah.
Usually by him, time is like
Yeah. It's unbelievable to see the beautiful malucha that he
$1
built up.
million shul, and he spent another 10 million to make it bigger.
Unbelievable.
And there was a time that he didn't have money to buy food.
Unbelievable.
How he went
So beautiful. And this you see the Rebbe is unbelievable. It's a toy view. It's not. I'm saying what today would be called an unbelievably progressive, liberal way, mahalach in looking on criminals. And it's beautiful to see how it expresses itself in the Rashi Sikh and the way that Rebbe learns the Rashi in Pshutei Shel Mikra. Okay, so let's get started.
He joined us this morning in Zoom.
Oh yeah, I saw. Okay, so after this unbelievable introduction, let's get straight into the psukim. Ve'ela mishpatim asher tosim lifneim, isikne v'divri, sheisharim yavad v'ashvi yetze chov shechina. In the 7th year, he goes out to Chavshi. V'megapa yav v'megapa yetze, bal ishu v'yotze ishte imay. V'madon v'yitan le'isha, v'yolda le'vonim, oy vonois, ha'isha v'yiladeh, ti'ladena, v'hu yetze v'gapa. His master has the right to give him a wife, but then when he goes free, the wife doesn't go free. The children stay as servants and slaves. It's talking about that the woman is non-Jewish. She's she's a Knanis. She's a non-Jew, and the master could say to the slave, "Listen, I want you to be with her at night because I want to have children and I want to
produce
produce
more workers.
the production line. He wants to widen the production line, but the slave goes free after 6 years. But the children they stay." If he says no, I want to stay. I like my master. I like my children, my wife. Which means he brings him to the Dayanim. He takes the Martzeh and he makes a hole in his ear. Okay. Okay. Rashi says, Hayamonis is right here. Maybe it's
I said it was sure in the morning.
Yeah, it's funny. It's
Happened to be.
Small happens to be small. You mean the dretzach. Pinashat upon your head is spinning. So
You're making a hole in the right side.
You're right.
huh?
It's really right.
Yeah. Now we know what's right. What's
They have
left.
it right.
Hey, Nela shall smile. Maybe you would think it's the smile. It says, Kan, that he's going to make a hole and the that when you did the metzora and you purify the metzora, you put oil, blood, v'chulu, you put the stuff and the tnuch oizen ametar hayamonis. The tnuch oizen is whatever Rashi says over there, the middle of the ear. But
Not this part.
no, not this part. There's a big to do about
The
what
more I say
tnuch
this
is.
part is made to close your ear.
Yeah, and this is a pasha what tnuch is. But pasha is the tnuch is something like it's a big shot. There's a tshuva from the Alter Rebbe that there was a moed hoira that paskin there was a cut in the ear of a bachor, and he said that there was a mum. There's a interest. There's a tshuva from the Alter Rebbe, a behemoth. And he said it was a mum, and they shechted, and the Alter Rebbe later, for some reason, someone the Alter Rebbe, there was some I don't know how that Alter Rebbe got involved. The question was asked to the Alter Rebbe, and the Alter Rebbe asked where was the hole, and Alter Rebbe's whole truth is saying that's not Tnuch Oizen, and it was Makal not a mum, and therefore
It's a pro.
it was a real Bechor. The whole truth from the Alter Rebbe, like. So Tanuch it's a ganze, there's a lot of parts to the ear. From here to here, there's a lot of parts. Tanuch is something like in the middle.
Because by Mitzvah I said the word no.
Here it doesn't.
By Eved
It doesn't say. It just says Oizen.
Doesn't say the word.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a minute. That Bepashtas, you're right. The only thing that we're learning from Mitzoida to here is just like by Mitzoida, we're talking about Oizen Hayamonis. The same thing here, we're talking about Oizen Yamonis. But big lav dafka that Rashi means that the hole has to be in the Tanuch. If the hole is in the tnuch, it's very painful. If you make a hole right over here, it's
nothing.
Right, it's no big deal. Exactly. So okay, let's go weiter. You touched on a good order that's in the Sicha, by the way. Okay, but anyway, Pashtus. So again, now that we clarified the bottom line, we're just learning from them, just like the Metzoda. You have to put the oil and you have to put the blood in order to be metayed him on the Oizen Hayamonis. The same thing here is to be Oizen Hayamonis. Bala Halan Yamonis, Afghan Fonis. Maro Oizen Li Rotsa Mekoli Bonum Shabagus. While all of a sudden did the Abish decide they should make a hole in the oizen? Maybe he should make a hole in his nose, maybe a hole in his leg. Why dafke this Eva from the Ramache Bonim? Amr B'Yechem Mazakai. Oizen Shesham al Harsinai like Tignav. This year, I mean, that heard, but the Abish say like Tignav, Halach V'Goni. Tirotza, it'll get a hole. If it's talking about that he sold himself, so you could darshan like this: Oizen Shesham al Harsinai Libnei Yisrael Avodim. That he heard in Har Sinai, the Abish said, "Libnei Yisrael Avodim." B'Halach V'Kon Adon La'atzma. He went, he bought a master for himself. Tirotza, it should get a hole. Shimon Haydor Shmikra Zeh Kimin Chaymer. Shimon used to darshan at Kimin Chaymer. In the Gemara in Kedushin, Afchav Bezit Gemara brought. It says, "What's Kimin Chaymer?" Chaymer is David. You want, you could join us. David, come sit right next to me. That yeah. Paper, you can look at the paper. Pen shed, you want a paper?
Sure.
Sure. They don't charge extra. Shumi, come sit down next to me and look with me. So,
Yes.
huh?
Yeah, I want to be on camera.
Okay.
Next to it.
That's next to. Don't worry. You want?
It's a wide angle lens.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not.
No, if it doesn't host the shidduch, don't worry.
It could even help. I'll tell you later a story. So, let's go back to the Rashi. What's a kimin choimer? So Rashi says that that is like a package that you put. Say you have a necklace and you have a thing, and it holds a whole bunch of margolius, a whole bunch of pearls. In the Bechlal, in the days of for thousands of years, pearls was very, very, very precious until the Japanese came and in the World Fair and they introduced how you have cultured pearls. Pearls meant that people would go scuba diving without the gear that we had, without a tank of oxygen and so on. They would just hold their breath
to get
one pearl at a time. It's given was a moedic thing. Usually people that were mining for pearls didn't live such an arichas yaman because they would do all kinds of tricks to be able to stay under the water for way more time than not depriving themselves action. Anyway, so pearls. You see Margolius in the Mishnah and the Gemara. Margolius is, I want to tell you some Margolius. And Margolius stands out. But today, when you go buy diamonds, it's quite expensive. And pearls are cheaper. I'm just, and then there's a box of Margolius. Not only one Margolius, but there's like a charm with a whole bunch of pearls, and then, or a string of pearls. And then there is also a box that also in the days of old, that before they figured out how to put in a perfume into a box and go spritz, that with a box, and it had inside good stuff that gave off an unbelievable geschmack of fragrance. So either way, it was a beautiful. So it was like a charm that had either beautiful stones, gemstones, or it was a charm that had beautiful besamim that gave off a good smell. So Reb Shimon at gedarshin kimin koimer. What was so special about Delis and Mezuzah? Why that you have to make the hole in his ear by the Delis and the Mezuzah? Kadosh Baruch Hu Delis and Mezuzah show you Eidim Mitzrayim Shebasach Delamash Kalashnei Mezuzahs. The Delis and Mezuzah, they were witnessed in Mitzrayim that I jumped over the Jewish homes and the mashkef and the Shtei Mezuzahs Vamarti, and then I took out the Jews with the condition that they're going to get the Torah. And when I gave them the Torah, I said, "Kli b'nei Yisrael avodim, heim v'la'avodim la'avodim, v'halo zeh v'kona odom la'atzma, yirotze b'fnei." This is all Rash. And you can imagine that the Rebbe is going to have a lot to say. Besides the obvious questions, the very strong and obvious questions, are, if a person heard a lot of Sinai that he shouldn't do a sin and therefore he gets a hole in the ear, why is it one of the 613? It should be a hole for every Aveda he does. Why dafke this Aveda? And then Rashi says, Oizen sheshamal hasina like tignav, v'hana v'gonav tirotz, v'moicher atzmai, Oizen sheshamal ibnei Yisrael avodna v'holach, v'kona odam atzmai. So that the first one is the ear that heard, not to steal, he steal, therefore he gets a hole in his ear. And second, if he sold himself as a slave, because he heard that he's not supposed to sell himself as a slave, and he sold himself as a slave, he should get a hole. So first of all, why do we wait 6 years? If it was for that Aveda, you should get right away a hole. And if you're ready, waiting 6 years to give him the hole. So by that point, it's because he said, I have this ishti v'said. So this time he sold himself as a slave. So it's not two separate things. Just say one thing. The Abisha said, don't sell yourself as a slave, and he kept himself as a slave for 50 years. These are the very obvious questions. And then, the less obvious questions are, why does he have to bring Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and Rabbi Shimon? And it's interesting, the Gemara says, why does he have to say the name? And the Gemara says that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was Dorish Kamin Chomer. Obviously, Rashi had some gears that in the Gemara that he wouldn't make it up himself. That only Rabbi Shimon Dorish Kamin Chomer, which is not like our Gemara. But what's the difference? That Rashi knew our gears too. So Rashi brings Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai plain, and then Rabbi Shimon Dorish Kamin Chomer. So again, these are questions already a little nitpicking, but. And then there's some of the less obvious questions, the Rebbe's type of questions, is like the Bartanura says, Hayamonis ain't as smallest. But Salama Oized, Meiki Taise Lima smallest, Veloy Yamonis, Tamalama Oizen Oizen like Zayda Shava. Never Metzodet Nuchoizem, Zayda Shava is a mufta, Metzadech, Shloi Tzorech Lashanas in your Pash, Vindalu, Eloy Licht of Shom, Vos, Mishpatim, and the Shina Kots of Licht of Pamachedes, Oz Nayamonish, Maminol Afnui, Little Zayda Shava Lamakum. The Torah was very repetitive about the Tahar of the Metzodah. Says over the pasuk for no reason. So therefore, to tell you really about what's going on with the Eved. But from the Lashon of Bartanur is mashma, without the Gzeir Shava, I wouldn't know. I would say, whichever.
What do you want?
Whichever you want, pick what you what's an afkamina. The Rebbe says, but it's not mashma that way from Rashi. Rashi says, Oy, einoi elo shall smallest as I'm in the grubber finger.
Like for sure, it's right. Maybe it's not.
So what do you mean? It's like you're saying, hey, you're honest. Oh, yeah, einoi elo shall small. Talmud loimer, or is it? What's she saying?
He's not quoting the bar.
The Rebbe has a whole. There's a few gersos. There's a mechilte weisters there. Yeah. Also, the Rashi continues, which is unusual. Again, this is the Rebbe's type of question. The Rashi continues. Afkana yemonis. Then Rashi is with a vav. Umaro or isn't lirotza mekol shari vorish beguf. Like, what's the connection?
When you finish,
you finished. You said it's the right ear, and what's of the left ear? Either way, you have a question. Maro isn't lirotza. Rashi kilu maro isn't lirotza. Like, what's the continuation? So some of the obvious questions the Mefarshim deal with. So let's learn a shtickle maral because he quotes also the Maram. This is just the shortest Mefarsh that I can bring that packs a lot of what the Mefarshim talk about in Rashi. So you have here the Maral. Oizen Sham Martzin Lo Tigna Hikshe Rebellion Mizrachi Holo Tigna begun in a Foshas ID. So it says that he heard by Har Sinai. He heard Lo Tignoivu and he heard Tilibnei Yisrael Vavodim. He never heard it. It's looking at Aseres Adibris. What did the Abisha tell the Yidden Aseres Adibris? He never heard this. It's a simple, fair question. Avatiris kolotere kula nichel baseres adibis kamashayasa dagon Rabbeinu Sadia agon. Okay. The emesis, it's later in Rashi, and it's a very geshmak at Rashi. And this week's parsha towards the end, it says Alei alai ahorev etna lacho es luchas even va'toira al mitzvah asher kosafti lehoiroisam. So the Mefarshim say what's bothering Rashi is the Eibishter said, I'm giving you the luchas and the Torah and the mitzvah asher kosafti, I wrote. Mela the luchas the Eibishter wrote, Ma'aseh Elokim Hema. But lechoida the Torah and the mitzvah, which is the mitzvahs means here Torah Shabbat Peh, like the Rambam says, or whatever, the Tayag mitzvahs, whatever you're going to say it means. Lechoida, that the Eibishter didn't write. Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the Sefer Torah. We spoke about it Shabbos. Moshe Rabbeinu on the day of his Ptira, or ahead of the day of his Ptira, wrote Yud Gimel Toidas. Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the Torah. The Eibishter wrote Aseres Adibris. So Rashi answers. The answer that Rashi gives is that Kol Tayag Mitzvahs Nichlo Ba'Aseres Adibris and Absadia. And then Rashi says that if you look in the Siddur of Absadia Goyen, there's like a sapiyut that he wrote for Shavuos, that he shows how every one of Tayag Mitzvahs has a shoyrish on one of the Aseres Adibris. So also here, the Rebbe says that the Mizrahi is very geschmack because number one, you could say Loi Tignev was a general thing. Taka, technically, Chazal say it means going of nefashos. It means going of nefashos.
Also,
but also,
it's also from Pedas today.
Right. But it's also Geneva and Li Yisrael Avodim is also Nasinai. The first Anoich Hashem Lakecha. Rashi said we learned last week in the Rashi Eretz Mitzrayim Beis Avodim Kedai Yitzor Kedei Shemishubodim Li. Where the Eibush introduces himself that I took you out of Mitzrayim, therefore you should be my slaves in the way of Mishubid. So the Libnei Yisrael Avodim is Merumas in Anoichi, and also in Lo Yeh, the Rebbe brings you Yerushalmi in Kedushin that says Oizen Shisham Maharsina Lo Yeh Lakim Acherim Alpana Upirkem Ela Olam Al Cheshamayim Vekibel Ela Oil Basar Vadam. So it's Merumas in Anoichi and Lo Yeh. This is fear. I mean, this is a simple question. Rashi said the Gemara, whatever, but Rashi is not talking Chomesh Mikra. So what do you mean? That the Eibush did not say more than the Aseres Adibris. Even the Aseres Adibris, it's complicated. What did the Eibush say? What did the Moshe Rabbeinu say? Because Rashi says that Moshe Rabbeinu said, the Eibush said all the Aseres Adibris in one time that a human being can't do.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the Eibush repeated it, and it seems in the repetition, Anoichi, the Eibush said the whole thing. Lo Yelecha, the Eibush said the whole thing. And the rest, Moshe Yidaber V'lakim Yanenu B'koil. Whatever. Bottom line is that Aseres Adibris Vinishvi, the Yidden heard from the Eibush. So you have to say that these things of not to steal and that you should be the Eibush servants, that they heard. The Yidden heard it in Har Sinai. Okay, let's continue. My time, why are you waiting for 6 years to pass? Why aren't you giving him a hole in his ear right when he gambit? By the way, the Rebbe asks, and not everyone that steals gets sold. It's only if he ain't malach shalom. If yesh malach shalom, if he has money in his pocket, he pays. So it's like funny. Nebuch, the guy that doesn't, he gets a hole in his ear. And if the problem is that oizen shoshana loy tigna v'holach v'gona, so what's the difference? What's the difference? He has money in his pocket or not? You're telling me because
he's stealing humanity and stuff from you.
So if the point is that he heard in Har Sinai not to steal, so what's the difference? Nebuch, this Yukla, who's a Ganav, is also poor, he gets a hole in his ear. And the rich Ganav doesn't get a hole in his ear. What's going on over here? My time, I'm Mishum the Halach the Ganav Yiritza, Yanitza Betchil Sheish, Mechem B'Meicharatzman, the Nitza B'Shvil Oizen, Shitzam Klub Neisol Avodim. Imkein, Ye Nitza Betchil Sheish, Yeshlam the Lonikr Konan on Latzm, Triyoitza B'Sheish. Davke Echad Ksiv Avodel Oilam Shuhu, Oilam Gomra the Yoilal, that's when, because that's more egregious to sin. Zav a Kone Oda in Liatzme. Well, Sheish Lev a Kone Natzla Adel Latzme, Fikr Shav the Yovel. Zabola, the Gnevasa, Fikr Yitza, Zalgnevasa, Vakim Macharatzme. Doesn't fully answer the kasha, but because by Holach, he's going to ask. Well, if he's a kasha, me doch kilash him oizen shoshana besina loitigna, v'loik ame oizen shoshana besina klib they saw lavodim. Lo avodim lavodim. Who kon adam laatzma? Shal yok lotzes veina yoytza bezakon adam laatzma. Ashmi yom metur etzakol the nirtza b'seif sheish kizen nikir kon adam laatzma. Kima shal yok lotzes am b'tchil sheish and nim kim negevasei. V'loik kon adam laatzma. V'mecharatzma. If this pshat from the Mizrahi is so good, so why did Rashi have to say two reasons? One, because he heard not to steal and he went to steal. One, that he say only the second reason. Second reason is Taki Gishmak. Because for being a Evid for 6 years, you don't get a hole in the ear. By being Evid for 50 years, then you get a hole in the ear. But what's the first thing you said? Because you heard Loitignav. What's up with Loitignav over here? Just tell me the second thing. Loit Kashal Das Rashi Chinitza Mois Nesham Loitignav and Kain Lama Nirtzam and Nedalas Azuza. The Lo Shaykh Gabe Loitignav Yesh Lataritz זה, der lobisch vergeht in Ewe hu nirze. Dem Leuke kol mich ois avede in nirze bosne. Loi me ois is shom like das avede boinis. What's avede? The people there'll be no place left in the ears. For every avede, they'll get a hole in the ear. Hello, could you imagine? It says it's why Hello, you could see you Simon Avdus. She is Simon boy shu Evid. In the olden days, how do you know that he was an Evid? They had like a tattoo or something. They made something in the Evid. Why didn't he make a tattoo in his forehead? Why didn't he put it on his right hand or his left hand? Okay.
There's a country you're not allowed to make a damage to your body.
Yeah. Here's funny. Here the opposite.
Yeah. Wow.
Anyway, time is short. I'll go straight to the Rebbe's biur. So, again, the big questions that all the Mefarshim ask is why only the Ganev and the guy selling himself as a slave, these two guys get a hole. If you get a hole because the Abishad said, don't do Avedis, you want to do Avedis, you get for all the Tayyag mitzvahs. Second obvious question is, why do you wait 6 years? And so you say, because now it was more egregious, but it's mashma because he sold himself. And then why does it actually need two reasons? Because he heard like thinking of it. At the end of 6 years, either way, he's allowing himself to be a slave. These are the big questions. The smaller questions.
6 years, right? It's a Chofshir, let's say.
Yeah.
Why you have to walk around when all everybody say, oh, you used to be a slave? Oh.
You're right.
You used to be a prisoner.
Why are you doing it? Okay. So, and then all the smaller questions we said that we already mentioned. So, but I'll tell you what, the trick with the Rebbe's Sichos are, the smaller the questions get, the closer you get to the answer. The more you get to the smaller questions, that's where you get to the answer. So Rebbe says like this. What's bothering Rashi is like this. Rashi is never bothered the time of the Kro. Why is this? Why you get Malchus? Why does it? We don't ask him. That's the Ratzon Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why did the Eibush say the oizen, not the toe and the whatever? Frekashin kashas. The kasha is like this. The kasha is like this. It's bothering a kasha. I said before. You see the liberal. Why the kasha is like this? Why are you giving him an oynish? A nebach habizoyin his whole life. He has to go around with a hole in his ear. Nebach. What did he do already? What did he do over there? Who's a ganev? A ganev nebach. A yid can't feed his family. Like the pasuk says in Mishlei, lo yavoizu leganev ki yignev lamali nafshe ki yidav. He was hungry, so he went to steal. I told you, Sichos progressive liberalism. What do you want from the Ghana?
He's a good man.
He's
to be that.
Yeah, and like the Gemara says, yeah. So what do you want from this guy? And now he says, I have this ishti. What do you want? The pasuk says, the made that a person should love his children and his wife. If he's going to leave, now he loses his wife and his children, because the Odin keeps them. It's not talking about his wife and his children. So he wants to stay with them. So why should he get such a oynish? So a person might think, a person is going to say, now I understand. A person is going to start darshaning his own Kimen Chomer, not Reb Shimon's Kimen Chomer. A person can say, now I know why the Eibush said to make a hole in his ear. Because what's the big deal? A hole in the ear. Till a couple of years ago, some men also now wear jewelry. But from a Yidna seine Stangen genommen to wear earrings.
There's all shayvet of Temonim, the Chabanim.
And they still
wear earrings.
The men wear earrings?
Yeah.
Interesting. Maybe they have a Kabbalah that they weren't from the Choitim and the Egel. So they don't get to lose their jewelry.
I thought it's only for men that want to say I'm gay, so you put that.
No, so men the difference if they put one or two and your boys and your monas, it's smallest.
Oh,
I think over there. I think it has to do with the
Simonim over there also.
The Simonim over there, yeah. It's only one noise.
In Lavdafka today, it's on two anyway.
So it's a Lavdafka.
But does it also matter, like the hole will close up?
So talk about this in a second.
Yeah.
But in the Hava Amina, a person's going to say, why did the Abishta pick the ear? Because it's a dova culture b'kalam. You see that people today, men don't do it, from a man, but women, right? Your daughter, you took your daughter.
It's a baby.
The baby, no big deal. You go, the baby can fall asleep, and if you have the baby while she's sleeping, loyoda.
Right.
Yeah, weiß nicht bechal. Kid wakes up, oh, there's already earrings on the ear. That's it. No big deal. It's no big deal. So heavy Amina. So if Rashi didn't say anything, if Rashi said nothing, person would say, Nebuch, this guy, you have to have compassion for this guy. He stole because he doesn't have Nebuch. So they should say to us, we can put an earring later. Don't worry, just give him a little hole in the ear. It's no big deal. It's like a slap on the wrist. Then Rashi said, that's why Rashi says that I would for sure think, without anything, Einoi Elo Shel Smallest. I would think that's the left ear. Why the left? Because we know that the right is more kosher. Like the Pasuk says, Lagabe, that film Yod Choy, Yad Smoil, Yad Shehi Keyo. So the Yad Yamin is choshuv and the Yad Smoil is bilti choshuv. And so therefore, the same thing, the Oizen Smoil is bilti cheshuva. So therefore, I would think, not like the Bora Tanura. That's what Rashi says. The Torah says, Yemonis, Oy Einoi Elo Shel Smoil. I would think, without any Gzeda Shava, I would think it's Dafka Shel Smoil. Why? Because it's a punishment, which is called Shebekalim. We don't want to really punish him so much. We want to just give him a little slap on the wrist. So we give him a hole so he can he'll put an earring in it. Don't worry, it's no big deal.
No, but the Torah doesn't mean. The Torah says make a hole.
The Torah says make a hole. I would think that it's a dova kal shebekalim. It probably means small. But the Torah made a Gzeda Shava to tell me it's Yamin. All of a sudden, now I thought it was the oizen because the soft part of the oizen. It's no big deal. A little slap on the wrist. But now that the Torah said that it's dafke oizen yimoni, I see something is going on over here. That's why the Rashi it's the same Rashi. That's why Rashi continues. Talmud loyma oizen oizen l'gzeir shava. Nema kamverot adayna zazav nema b'mitzeret nuch oizen matara yimonis. Mal halan yimonis afkan yimonis. Umaro oizen liyirotz mekol shori vayim shevguf. Now Rashi has a question. Now he says, I have a problem. I thought it was only the oizen small because the Torah picked the least. The left ear is give him another earring. But now that the Torah was medayik, that it has to be oizen hayamonas, the Torah put later an extra posik lagabe. So why the Torah says by the Metzoida that it needs to be the right ear from Shkin Kasha? First of all, when the Torah says things I don't have Kasha. Second of all, Tahora, we're talking about Tahara. If the person was Tomei in a very bad Tuhum, now we want to make him Torah. So we have to put the blood and the oil on the Choshevet hand, on the Choshevet leg, on the Choshevet ear. We do everything on the right side of his body. That's Vashteich. But all of a sudden here, the Torah was said an extra pasuk there. That's a mufna. In order to teach us here that we're going to make the hole for the Eved and the Oizen Yamona. Why? For what was the Eibishter so gewollt? I thought the Oizen is Kal Shebekalim. Now you're telling me Oizen Yamonis, Habechakasha. Omer B'Yocham answered. What was the answer? The B'Yocham Azaki answered Azoi. What was the answer? B'Yocham Azaki said like this. You're right. That really, the thing is like this. We don't know a Ganav. You don't know who's a real criminal. Who is like a Ganav, quote unquote,
not
Ganav.
Not for food.
Yeah, and who is Nabach? He's hungry. How do you know it when a person who's not really Rachmana litzlan, he didn't become a Ganav benafshay, he's embarrassed. So someone meets him in the street. What are you doing? I'm pulling wood. What are you pulling wood? Because Bezna Ganav. He feels terrible. He can't wait till he's polishing for the day that the Shemitah and he goes out free. And he can't wait. notwithstanding that the haftis ishti ves adonai ves bonai, but the natural thing for a human being is to have an unbelievable bizoyan. No one wants to be called a slave. So the bizoyan is unbelievable. So the fact that he stole, if he's ganav or it's he was hungry and so he was hungry. He was hungry. He was desperate. He was desperate. He was desperate. And the Rebbe says, unbelievable deal. What does it mean? Oizen sheshama al har Sinai. Why al har Sinai? Why not Oizen sheshama be'oyel moyed be'mishkan? There was a lot of things the Abish said be'mishkan be'oyel moyed. What's talking the Gemara? It says Oizen sheshama al har Sinai. First of all, the Gemara goes to Akasha. Second of all, Rashi doesn't always quote Rashi. The Rebbe says, unbelievable deal. Because whenever the Abish spoke in oil moyed, you never heard it. Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to the Eibush and Oil Moed. The Moshe Rabbeinu would come out and tell Bnei Yisrael. The only time the Yidden heard was by Matan Torah. By Har Sinai, they heard. So dus heard with your ears. You didn't hear it ish mipish. The Eibush himself said, Loi tignoivu. The Eibush himself said, Asher tzisicha meretz Mitzrayim. You should be my servants and never let yourself be a servant to someone else. The Eibush, I told you. And so what do you mean? I told you. So the Rebbe says unbelievable word, and the Rebbe thinks that this is pshuta shel mikra. Because why are you stealing? Because you're hungry. Why are you stealing? Because you're hungry. But think for a minute. If you heard the Rebbeinu Shalom telling you not to steal, the Rebbeinu Shalom knows that the uncle is going to be hungry one day. One of my favorite stories given a balagola. It was the middle of the winter, and he took responsibility to bring stuff, merchandise from here to there. Middle of the blot, the Sichos are angefallen the blot. It all got ruined. They went to Rav and Torah. The Rav said, "Yeah, you took responsibility. You have to pay." So he said, "Where do you say that?" The Rav says, "It's in the Choshim Mishpat." So who wrote that Choshim Mishpat? So Balakol is getting really angry. He says, "Yeah, but Yankov, what's wrong with you? The Rebbeinu Shalom, Moshe Rabbeinu told us in the Torah." He says, I know, because the Torah was given in the summer. And Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't imagine the pain of a balagola with a blot in the middle of the winter. So the Ghana were telling him, the Eibishter told you heard from the Eibishter, Loi Tignoi. The Rebbeinu Shalom knows that there's going to be hundreds of years later, a Yidele, that Nebuch is not going to have bread to put on the table. And still, the Eibishter said, Loi Tignoivu. So the Ganav is going to say back, I'm telling it the way that I've said it in the Sicha. You want me to go to the mikveh and say L'Shem Yichud and put on talis tefillin and go to shul and down. In the meantime, my wife and kids were crying; they were hungry. I couldn't take it. I went like instead of going to mikveh and daven, I went like a gambit. So we say maybe he's right. So we wait 6 years. We wait with 6 years. If it was Taka, that he bets him, he would have wanted to daven. He would do, instead of going davening to the Rebbeinu Shalom to provide the Gegamet. It's an initial Gevara. He would run out of his master's house after 6 years. Right. The bushes of being a Ganav is so intense. This guy who stands up and he says, I have to say, so it shows that Rachmana litzlan, his gneve is not stam. He's a young the Ganav. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? He says, Yankel the Ganav. That is a terrible thing. That is taka a terrible thing. That we say Oizen Shesham al Har Sinai Lo Tignoivu, and he went and he stole. So he's now getting. So it depends if he sold himself as a slave, it's for me, and if it's two different things. It's not because of now. We're going back 6 years. But what happened 6 years ago when he sold himself as a slave because he was poor, or when he stole because he was poor, we didn't know. There's no excuses. Eibishter, you have to trust. If you need parnasa, go to the open at the ilam and mispal to the Rebbeinu Shalom to give you parnasa. In a weak moment, he went and he stole. So we don't know, was it a weak moment or is he a Gana? 6 years later, we find out, l'mafreya. So therefore, it's not for all Taryag mitzvahs. It's something unique that's dafke for these two people, either moicher atzma or a Ganav. But b'shas the Geneva, b'shas moicher atzma, we can't pin it on him because you have to have compassion on a criminal. But 6 years go by, and this guy Shemtzachnish. For 50 years, they're going to call him Maganef. How are you not embarrassed about it? Aren't you embarrassed? Elamai, it's a terrible thing. So this guy is not embarrassed. So he was the Oizen Shasham al Har Sinai, Loitignoi, Oiz Shashon al Har Sinai, Kelibin Yisrael Avodim, Avodim Avodim. And he went and he stole, and he sold himself as a slave. Therefore, he's getting a hole in his ear.
And that's right.
But they're right. Taka in the right. Taka to embarrass.
You're not embarrassed. I'm going to.
Taka, yeah, in the Oizna Chashuva, not in the Oizna Abilti Chashuva.
Everybody should.
In the Oizna Chashuva,
Is there a way that, so let's say he wants to go free, but he still loves his wife and his kid? Is there a way that can he buy their freedom? Can he somehow still be
sure he
with them?
can buy his freedom. He can buy the freedom.
What are the solutions for him?
If he
really wants to go,
he could always buy them for that. That's no question. That he can buy them free.
That's the only solution.
But no, that would be the only solution. That would be the only solution.
If he goes free and they're still slaves, he can't be married to them.
No,
what happens to the marriage?
He can't.
It just comes null and void.
Yeah, the marriage is null and void. Yeah, but it's not his marriage. It was only Adonav Yitam Isha. Yeah, the marriage is null and void.
For the Chefza, the government.
Yeah, it's real avdus. It's real avdus. It's like that's a real evidence.
Massive enforcement.
Huh?
It's massive enforcement.
Massive enforcement. Yeah, that's real avdus. It's unbelievable.
If she go into free, she could buy him as a slave.
So that's the vote. So therefore, the Rebbe says when we got to the Rabbi Yochanan Zakai, it wasn't yet Dorish Kimin Chomer. We didn't understand what's going on. We still were trying to understand what's going on. At the end, Rashi says, Dorish Reb Shimon Kimin Chomer. It's not interesting the lomdas that the Rebbe has on this. The Rebbe says that Rabbi Yochanan Zakai had a Talmud, which was Rebbe Akiva. Rebbe Lezer Godler had a Talmud, Rebbe Akiva. Rebbe Akiva had a Talmud, which is Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai. So Rabbi Yochanan Zakai said Etzem Inyan. Then a few generations later came Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai, and even though Rebbe Shimon Bar Yochai is Dorish time of the Kro, but Rabbi Yochanan Zakai already was Dorish time of the Kro. But he added him in Chomer. What's Chomer? Chomer is to machen lichtig. The gemstones are all a good smell. So he added a little bit of drush to emphasize what his Rebbe's Rebbe Shengizor, to emphasize what he already said. He wanted to emphasize this inyan. So he said that why to show why these two Avedas are so egregious over all other 613. Even though Rabbi Yochanan Zakai Shamaz begiven, what's so special about these two, but he wanted to shed a little more light, give more a geschmack, a lichtigkeit and a geschmack. And this, why Dafke, the Eibishter, like the Maral asked, why is it for no sin you get a whole year? Dafke for these two sins. So therefore he adds about the Delas that the Eibishter protected the Yidden because he wanted them to be his servants. So Mamela, that adds a little bit to what Rabbi Yochanan Zakai said. Why did the Rashi say the names of Reb Shimon and Bar Yochai and Rabbi Yochanan Zakai? Because that adds, the Gemara says that when a person comes to heaven, because the Talmud Mamulach is still saying, come on, he's not a real criminal. What do you want from this guy? He was a poor man. The Talmud Mamulach is still, again, I told you, it's a progressive liberalism, the Sichos. So the Rebbe says, because the Gemara says that the person comes to heaven, so if he's a poor person, Hillel, Machayev, Aniyim, and Rebbe Lezer Machar, so Machayev is Ashirim. And a person says, I'm only, I couldn't learn. So they call Hillel and they say, look at, and if the guy says, I'm rich, I had no time to learn, they call Rebbe Lezer Charso. So here, the guy says, hey, what do you want? I couldn't provide. So I had a job, but then I couldn't make ends meet. So I gigamat abyssal on the other side. So they say, look who's talking. Rabbi Yochanan Zakai, Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Yochanan Zakai, Befrat, the Gemara says that he was a Oshir, and then he became a Mordecai Oni, because came the Romans. The Gemara says that 40 years was Osik Beprakmati. He was a businessman. This a guy who lived in Flatbush. He was a businessman. He was good in business. Mitnamo became very difficult times. The Romans came, the late siege on Yerushalayim, and he became an unbelievable man. And he rose to the manhigus of Klal Yisrael. He was the one that convinced the Romans to save Yavne Chachameh, which, at least at this point, we'll talk about the side in the Gemara that says that was the smartest thing that one could have done, and that was an unbelievable chacham because he knew that he's not going to save everything. At least he was able to save Torah of Klal Yisrael, and so therefore, we're telling the Ganev, who could it be Chamazakai? He let his business go, and he went from being rich to being poor, Abi to be able to teach Torah. And he relied on the Eibishter. He didn't worry about it. And Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, the same thing. Shimon Bar Yochai was in the time of the height of the difficulty of Romans, and he trusted in the Eibishter. He didn't care to criticize the Romans, so he criticized them. The Romans are going to come after him. He went to the cave and he trusted in the Eibishter, and he had a nest. And the Eibishter made it in the Maya and Cheruvim, and he trusted, and the Eibishter took care of him. So Dafke, we'd say that's why these people, that's why Rashi's Meramas, by saying the names of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. When the Rebbe spoke about the Sichot, the Rebbe in B'toich Advorim, the Rebbe all of a sudden was a fire. The Rebbe said, a Yid sits to Shabbos. And the Yid opened a newspaper. He says, the Rebbe said, it's an unbelievable thing. The Rebbe, it's like all of a sudden was a fire in the Fabrengen. The Rebbe said, a newspaper is bittel Teure and bittel Zman and Pizer HaNefesh and Pizer HaGuf. But on Shabbos, Mela, the 6 days of the week, you're Mishubid, you say you need to know what's going on in politics, you're buying and selling stocks, you need to know what's going on in the market. Mishubit, so you say a Shabbos kodesh is to be called malachtacha suya, and now you open the paper. It's the beweislich of the ganze sechs tag. And you are claiming that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday you must look at the Wall Street Journal, and you're going to do business otherwise. Shabbos the called malachtacha suya. Shabbos is to be kodesh kadoshim. Right. Learn Torah, daven b'avodas Hashem, be misboinen and godless Hashem. Spending Kedusha on Shabbos. All of a sudden, everyone went into the whole thing about the avla of opening up a newspaper on Shabbos. On Shabbos, you're opening up a newspaper on Shabbos. What's going to a newspaper on Shabbos? This is the habit that one to say. This is, a hafti es adoini. This Odin, Golus, the Goyish Odin. Holas ever kona Odin la'atzma. Mela, middle of the week, you have no choice, Taka. He has to know what's going on if he's buying or selling stocks. He has to know what's going on in the market. If he's in this and that industry, he needs to know what's the Governor Hochul signed this into law, that into law, that listen, because it's negated his business. So Mamela, he has to read up what the governor said, what the mayor in the city said, v'chulu, because he needs to know how to run his business. But Shabbos, he forgets about everything. Shabbos, he daven b'avodas Hashem, and he learns with his children, and he spends it with his family. Opening up a newspaper on Shabbos. So by you open a newspaper on Shabbos, you said, "Ahafti es adoini." It's a terrible thing. We got to schlep the guy by the ear. You're my servants. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. He had no choice. You got to put on CBS. You want to know there's traffic. You're driving. You have to listen to the news. You have to look at the newspaper. Maybe yeah, maybe not. Shabbos, how much you have to, what you have to. Shabbos. So when you open the news on Shabbos, it's like this guy that said, "Ahaftis Adoni." Terrible.
When you see a guy standing by the newsstand on Shabbos looking at the paper, you have to
give him a schlep by the ear, the right ear, not the left ear.
No, you have to knock a nail into.
No, Shabbos you can't do. Shabbos. You gotta pull him by his right ear or bring him to basement Mendel.
Yeah.
He should learn a little Torah.
You're going to call Malachtam Chasuya. And he didn't 5 times Jewish time.
I think it's unbelievable. Down to earth lesson. Avodas Hashem. This is Tav Shem Lamed, Parshas Mishpatim. So I just read it. In the Sichos, bekitzer. שגם בימי אחר בעוסקים יונה גשם אין משובד להם, אין עוסקים באופן של עבד לעבודם, כאדרבה. משתמש בהם לצור כאמיתי, ליאס עבד לקדוש ברוך הוא, שבו יהיה השבס מקודש, is מבדיל למגדיע את עצמו לגמרי, ויונה אחר ועוסקי הוא לימד התוירה, והאבוידס השם יזבורך. And when he does that, he's just like the Birchim Azakai, the Shas HaShurban, wasn't just that he got Yavna v'Chachamel. When he didn't have the Torah, through that they bring Mashiach Tzidkenu. There was a trick. He knew that Rachman Tzan the Churban is going to be, but by saving the Torah, through this, we're going to bring back that the Rebbe says, through this was it's the opposite of the Oizen being getting a hole by the Delis and the Mezuzah, is the opposite of this, is that we're Zoichet to the Beis HaMikdash, and we have a medrash that the Rebbe used to koch and Tova Boret Shoreh, that that it says that when they came, so all of a sudden Eibishter made a miracle, Tova Boret that all the losses of the Beis HaMikdash went into the ground, and the Rebbe has this whole thing that there's a machlokes, the Rashi Toises, the Zohar, and the Gemara. Mashiach is going to come, if they're going to come down from heaven, or it's we're going to build it. One of the terutzim that Rebbe gives is because it says Tova Baritz Shoreh, so that Mashiach is going to come, Beis Hamikdash is going to come down from the sky, and the Shorim are going to pop down from the Kol HaMayim losses, Kilu him and his Kol HaBinyan, and his coin is Kol HaBinyan. So the Yidden are going to take the losses, and we'll be Tovei in the Beis Hamikdash. And with that, we're going to be kind of the Beis Hamikdash, and that's it. So in the schus, that Shabbos Kodesh, instead of looking and listening to the newspaper, that we're looking and listening in the Maimorim and the Gemara that we're learning it and we're spending in Kedusha, and that's schus and Mitzvah Hashem, instead of the opposite, that Verotza Fakert that we'll be Zoichet to pick up those doors and Kaveh in the Beis Hamikdash Ashlishi.
Thank you.